Welcome to Elite Broker, the podcast showcasing the leading players and stories of success from Australia's broking industry.
Hello and welcome back to Elite Broker. I hope you're all having a fantastic week so far. In this week's episode, we have a treat for you in that we have not one, but two wonderful brokers joining us on the podcast. If you're from Sydney, you might know the rural Sydney suburb of Glenorrhy. Which is up on the Marramara National Park boundary, a beautiful area of the north of Sydney. But if you haven't been up there, then you might not have met the Two Birds, One Loan co-founders and managing directors, Eloise Dooley and Alyssa Childs, who have been setting up their brokerage up in the town and really delighting their customers up there. So in today's episode, we're catching up with both Elle and Alyssa to find out how they've been doing it. So I think first things first, Alyssa, when you think about your whole journey to getting to where you are now and setting up a brokerage, you're probably one of the few people who are lucky enough to have had a partner to do it alongside. How did you and Eloise first become mates and set up Two Birds, One Loan?
Well, Elle and I have been friends since high school, actually. We met in year 8. So, yeah, gosh, how long ago? 20-something, I don't even know. I've known her longer than I've known my husband, but
wow,
we've got a tried and tested friendship. We've just done everything together. We sort of finished school at the same time. We both went out into our own careers. I joined the banking industry and Elle joined more of a marketing type industry and went on to do different things, but all the while spent all of our weekends together. We've just been really, really amazing friends this whole time. And probably the conversation began after we had our first children. We've done everything at the same time. So we had our first children together. We now also have 3 children each. We had our last ones at the same time. We're living a little synchronized life here. Yeah, we just had the conversation of what do we do? How do we manage this now that we've got these babies? We were both in corporate roles and looking to return back full time, and it just felt like it was time to make a change. So yes, we had a conversation around what could we do possibly together. We were both sort of living in similar areas to one another, and yeah, we just came up with the idea that Elle could sort of change over industries, and I had all the skills and relationships to start the brokerage. And with a background in finance I don't even know, I think I started in 2003 working for another broker. So it was something I knew that I could do, and I had always thought that I would do it, and I'd done the study already sort of 10 years before. And it all just, conversations began and we just started putting the plans in place.
So Eloise, you made the jump from marketing to join Alyssa at the brokerage. What was the transition like for you to sort of get your head around what the ins and outs of broking?
Oh, I did. Yeah, it was a big jump for me and it was a big decision because, I'd spent all of my corporate career, working towards, a marketing career essentially. And I was working in a corporate field at the time, but I was working more in marketing analytics. I was doing a lot of background numbers and price sensitivity and all those sorts of things. So my head was always in a spreadsheet. I wasn't doing so many marketing activations per se. Mm-hmm. And I was always looking for something different. We had always dreamed of creating our own business together. And something that, was flexible for our children, that, could earn us a good income. So it was really a bit of a no-brainer for us. I found the transition quite good. So when I was on maternity leave, I did all my study. I was actually quite excited for the change. To be able to call something my own and to not have to travel into the city every day from Glenorrhy, it made a lot of sense for us.
Yeah, because it's a bit of a trek actually, going from Glenorrhy into the city. I think it's 40 kilometres away?
Yeah, it's about it's probably an hour.
Without traffic. Yeah.
Bit of a trek, and what a beautiful part of the city as well, because right on the boundary of the national park, you've got all the greenery up there, you've got lots of space, such a lovely sort of area to be broking in. But when you mentioned there about having the kids and wanting to create something for your own, not having to go to the CBD, not having to go through the corporate grind, being a bit more flexible. Did that actually then mean that you were sort of working half a day here, half a day there? Were you only working nights? Like, how did you actually, when you're still managing little kids, I'm assuming, how did you sort of balance that and being a mother?
I think originally when I went back to work, I think 4 days a week when I had only one child. So I was doing 3 days in the city. I'd do 1 day from home and I'd take 1 day off. So we were able to effectively sort of manage daycare, and my husband's really hands-on. So he would do drop-offs and pickups and all those sorts of things. So originally I started doing the two side by side, and then I just got to a point where I'm like, you know what, I just need to give this a really good crack, and I need to put in all of my attention into the business. You know, in hindsight, it was probably a little bit too early because, I mean, the business took a little bit longer to grow than we first anticipated. You know, building a business from scratch, and because we didn't buy a book, it's hard. And, you know, getting people to trust you and, you know, getting that consumer base and getting some runs on the board, that's a really tough thing. And, you know, there are a lot of years there where, you know, we didn't pay ourselves very much. But then when it does happen, it really kicked off. So
Yeah, and I think that is such a great lesson for anyone listening who might be in their first few months of broking and thinking, oh, I'm not really getting anywhere here. I haven't maybe written my first loan. Is it ever going to happen? I think that's a common thing. People say it takes a while, but once you do actually get your first few loans through the door, then it picks up very, very quickly. So really the first few months are a great opportunity to be focusing on what will you do when you are too busy, because at the moment you've got the time to actually focus on it. You talked about, you know, having to sort of establish an independent business and really set yourself up from the ground. So Alyssa, I wonder why you decided to go down this route where you had your own business rather than maybe buy a franchise or buy a book.
I think we wanted to do something a little bit unique, and we always thought we would do something sort of different and make a few waves in an industry that's a little bit bland. So hence the name. We came up with something, or Elle came up with that with her marketing experience, but something that was just different. And I don't think we really saw ourselves as being, you know, just for example, a Mortgage Choice or an Aussie Home Loans or something like that. We wanted to be unique. So we never really considered buying into a franchise. So yeah, we just wanted to be something different to what everyone else was doing.
Yeah, Two Birds, One Loan was launched. How did you come up with the name, Elle?
I don't know. I think it was just one of those epiphanies that just sort of comes to you one night. We'd always brainstormed. I mean, Alyssa and I have brainstormed multiple businesses over the years. And yeah, this is one that we really thought that had legs. I don't know. We just sat down and had a bit of a brainstorm. Just one of those things that comes to you.
Comes to you. That's the marketing, creativity bolts just striking at the right time. And you joined Connective as your aggregator. How did you make the decision of which aggregation group to go with? And Alyssa, I'll direct that to you.
Well, I've known Mark Harron and Fee Harron for a long time. I met them when I first joined Suncorp, which was back in about 2008. And so we've become very good friends over the years. So that was probably one factor. Another factor is as a startup, you know, and we did have big ambitions to grow quickly, that a flat fee model just made the most sense for us. And the Mercury software is super functional. Like, we've never really had any problems at all. We didn't really explore other aggregators, to be honest, just for those different reasons. It just was a bit of a no-brainer for us to choose Connective.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've been pretty happy with it.
Very happy, yeah.
And software obviously being such a key part of it, I think we'll touch on sort of process and technology and how you actually write loans in a little bit later. But I think first off, can you maybe talk to me about what you actually, you know, you said you started off in a broking company way back when and then sort of had a banking career. What actually made you think, you know what, broking is for me? Was it the lifestyle sort of factor, or was it the, you know, the rewarding experience? I wonder what it was that you thought, this is what I want to be doing.
There was a lot of things, a lot of factors, I should say. One being that we needed flexibility. We had little kids. By the time we'd started the business, I'd had my second child, and I'd had my first two 15 months apart. So I was very, very busy with a baby and a toddler. I needed flexibility, and it was at that point that I realised I can't do a full-time corporate role. I loved my corporate career. I felt very, very sad having to give that away. Financially, you know, we took a huge hit between the two of us, losing a few $100,000 of income between us. It's a very hard decision to make, but we were never focused on the short term. We were always looking towards the 5-year plan, and we're fortunate that we had supportive husbands. We had some capital behind us, which is so important. And I think that's probably the reason why a lot of people don't succeed in the first 1 to 2 years, because it does take time to make money and you have to survive. So I think, having having some capital there was so important. But I always thought that I would become a broker one day, but I probably wouldn't have had the guts to do it until I was, a mother.
Had to, yeah.
And I needed the flexibility. And I like Elle, I didn't want to drive to the city. And even though it was a flexible role, the BDM role is full on. You're getting 50 calls a day and 200 emails a day. And through my whole career, I was regularly working till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I just couldn't do that with 2 young babies. So, yeah, that was the main reason, all those sort of factors that we thought this is it. Like, it's time to just jump in the deep end. And we were very quietly confident. It just took a little longer than what we had thought it would take to get it really, really going. But a couple of years in, we've sort of realised that it was 100% the right decision.
Yeah. So how long, you're saying it took a little bit longer than you expected. How long did you expect it to take before it was sort of self-sustaining, and how long did it actually take?
I think we thought that within the first 12 months we'd be making, an income to survive on, but it really took time. And I think that's something that
probably
new
took more
brokers
like
don't
2
realise.
years,
Yeah.
I think. Until we were really self-sustaining. We were covering all of our fees. We were paying ourselves a wage. And then I think
We had our first staff member in 2020, and that's when it really started to pick up. Like, we were paying ourselves, we were paying her. And from then, it's just grown and grown. Like, year on year, we've doubled. Our settlements have doubled every
Wow.
year since we've started. We can't obviously sustain that forever, but
Well, it depends how many staff you have, I suppose.
Yeah. We'll never say never. But, the trajectory has been very steep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long ago, I should have asked actually, how long ago did you actually set up the company?
It was September 2018.
2018.
So it's 5 years.
So you went through, you had a couple of years under your belt before the pandemic hit, and then you went through the pandemic weirdness that everyone did. Did you find that you had to change much of how you were working? Were you already working pretty remotely?
Our office was from Elle's house at that stage. So, yeah, I can't even remember. We worked from home for a little while.
Yeah,
Danny worked from home.
Yeah, I had a baby at the beginning of the pandemic. So I had a newborn, when was it, 2020? So I think that's when all the hard lockdowns came into place. And yeah, look, I was working from home. Alyssa would sort of come into the office when she could. And then, look, these days everyone's set up to work remotely. It's very easy with, Teams and Google Sheets and, all of our software, like our CRM Mercury. It makes it very easy for people just to pick up, at home or wherever they are. So we made sure that all of our staff were set up with screens and computers and keyboards and everything that they needed to work from home. We sort of supplied that to them. But yeah, COVID is when we really
Took off.
Like, we had never been busier. I had a new baby at the time. Alyssa had 2 kids at the time, but they were sort of a little bit older. And then towards the end of the pandemic, we both decided to have another baby.
At the same time.
Yeah, of course. You got to.
I know, because we synchronise all the other aspects of our life.
Yeah.
So I had a baby in September 2021, and then Alyssa had a baby in December 2021. Probably not the smartest business decision, but look, we got through it, and we were lucky at that stage that, we had we have a VA in the Philippines, so we have Mariel, and she is amazing. So by that stage, she was quite well trained. And then we had
We should
Charlotte.
mention that Danny, our full-timer, also had a baby at the same time.
Wow.
So her baby came 4 months after mine. So between the 3 of us, we had 3 babies 6 months apart. And we were the only 3 staff in the team. So Mariel came on to take over
That's
from
right. Mariel
Danny.
came on afterwards, yeah.
And then we very quickly realised that wasn't enough. So we put on Charlotte, who, that decision was a big decision because she's a full-time, senior broker assistant, but we were at the position where we thought, we've got these little babies. We need someone in the office full-time who's in Australia who can be client-facing and take calls and things like that. So Charlotte joined in June 2022.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting point, and we're actually talking about this in the Women of Finance Summit later this year, because one of the sort of, I suppose, main things about being a female business owner is that we go through different life stages than men, obviously. So while, yes, obviously men can have children, they're not bearing the children or having to sort of take maternity leave and have that kind of, real focus on them specifically. And then you've got the other things like, any health impacts or later in life, menopausal impacts is actually another big thing you need to think about when you're a business owner, which I didn't even know until about a month ago. Freaked me out when I found out the things that your body goes through during menopause. One person lost their memory for 3 months, for example.
Oh, wow.
And how on earth do you run a business when you've got no memory? So lots of things to think about. But when you've got 3 members of staff off with babies, how did you run? I mean, you talked about having a new person come in, but how did you sort of, I suppose, survive as a business with maternity leave? All the key persons off on leave.
I mean, I think
Well, we didn't take maternity leave. Elle and I, we had the babies. I was working whilst I was in labour.
I was back in the office like the day
The
after I
next
got
day.
home.
Yeah.
I mean, the business doesn't stop. And, while the babies are little, it's actually the easiest part because all they do is they eat and they sleep. It's when they get a little bit older and they need to be stimulated and they're rolling around and they're pulling all the cords out from under the desk and they're tapping on your keyboard
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. That's when it gets a little bit difficult. So in terms of, having a newborn baby, and because we'd had 2 babies before, it didn't come as so much of a shock to the system. But during that period, we were incredibly busy. So
It was the biggest year by far.
It was a huge year and we just didn't have the opportunity to stop. So I'm like, look, we just had to keep telling ourselves it's short term. We just had to go through it. And look, there were a lot of late nights, in the interim. And look, it was really, really difficult. I'm not going to lie. But
it was
then,
the hardest year that we've had by far, obviously.
And it was hard because of the property boom seeking demand, or because you think the company had reached that sort of maturation process, or a bit of both?
Bit of both. Yeah, we just become so busy and we didn't have the staff to deal with it. So we put Charlotte and Muriel on, but they were both fairly green, and we had to train them. And we were sort of green in training people. And we were busy. So we didn't really have the foundations in place to get them up to speed. And we were sort of we just survived that year. And we were in a very challenging space, both of us, our headspace. We were just thinking, this is not sustainable. We knew we had to do something, but we didn't know what we had to do. We didn't know if we needed to train the staff we had to have them to take on more, or if we needed to get another member of staff. We just honestly were like, what do we do? So that's actually the point where we decided we needed a mentor and a coach. And we
had so much going on and we knew where we wanted to be and we knew what we wanted to do. We just didn't have any particular order that we knew what to do it in. And I think, she really, we engaged Nancy Youssef, so you've probably heard of her.
Classic mentoring, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So we engaged Nancy and she just brought us right back to basics and just started at the very beginning. And I think, one of the biggest things that she's taught us was about time management and not doing things that we don't have to do, and making sure that every part of our day is allocated to a specific activity. Even looking at your week overall and what that looks like for your family. So, if the kids have activities to do, put them in your diary and work around them. And, coach all the staff and train all the staff so, the engine keeps turning while you're not there. So, there was a big piece in, bringing all our staff up to scratch with all of their training and, getting them to understand our vision and what we want from them. And then what else do we do? So, just training them up, getting our processes in place. So making sure that all of our technology across all of our platforms, so whether that be, from first interaction with a customer, what's the process from there? So we utilise things like Calendly. So all of our customers book time into our meetings. We very rarely take any customer meetings without, them having booked in our calendar first. And that just helps us sort of compartmentalise our day because quite often our days are quite short. So, our kids don't start school till 9:30, which is
That's late.
It's horrendous.
Yeah.
And then, look, they do finish at 3:30, but then, you've got kids in the office and it's mayhem in our office of an afternoon.
It's
the kids...
essentially a 5-hour day.
Yeah.
And we've still got babies. So I've got my little one, she's 1.5, and she's with me on a Tuesday and a Thursday. So I really have Monday, Wednesday, Friday and 5 hours on those days. It's condensing a full-time job into 15 hours a week. So you have no time to not be productive.
Yeah.
So the thing that Nancy has taught us is how to just maximize the hours that you have. You should only be working on the tasks that are relevant to your role. So she's really forced us to step up, and she's forced our staff to step up to take over everything else. And we've had to just let go of so many things that we used to just take on, and we were so overwhelmed. And now...
And that's really hard, the process of letting go. Like for me personally, who's a little bit of a control freak, Alyssa and I have both built this business from scratch, and then to have someone come in and take over all these things that, you know, we traditionally love to do, but it's not the best use of our time.
Yeah.
So we've really just had to step back and trust the team.
Yeah. And I think that is so key to having a mentor because, as you say, it's your business, you've done everything. And sometimes you might think, oh, you know, it's just faster if I do it because I know how to do it. But it's not sustainable because you end up doing everything. But having someone to be like, write down everything that's important to you and then actually do those things and offload everything else. It also helps you, I think, buy into what you're doing, to offloading some of the responsibility because you're like, actually, yeah, I don't like doing that. I just do it because it's quicker. So having someone who doesn't have the same sort of emotional connection to the company, is able to look at it from a sort of objective point of view is really, really key. So yeah, good on you for hiring Nancy and for taking the steps to actually bring someone in to help you. So you mentioned Calendly already. Is there any other sort of tools or tech that you use day to day that helps you manage your business?
I mean, Alyssa and I use Asana, so it's sort of a task management platform. So for anything that's sort of outside of, you know, deal-related tasks, so anything to do with business development, anything that we're working on outside of the business, any sort of PA tasks, any tasks in our personal lives, we put them all into Asana. And I think that just helps us download everything that's in our brains and get it on paper so that we're not sort of stressed about, you know, everything that we've got to do. So that was a big piece of the puzzle was, getting our lives onto paper. And then in terms of our workflow process, we use Calendly. So another big piece of the puzzle was getting the team to be the first point of contact for all of our clients. So instead of them calling us all the time, because we're getting, you know, lots and lots of phone calls every day, and then every phone call is half an hour and it just eats into your day, and we really don't have the time. As much as we love our clients, we just don't have the time to be sitting on, you know, hour-long phone calls all the time. So, you know, we've redirected all of our phone calls. We urge all of our clients to call our support staff instead of calling us. So Charlotte will be the first point of contact, and then she will book a time into our calendar where we'll sit with them, assess the deal, figure out what's going on, if we can help them, etc. And then after we've picked a lender, it goes back to the team and they lodge the deal. And then they're the first point of contact for any sort of missing information, anything to get it lodged, and then they follow it all the way through to settlement.
Yeah. Okay, so you've talked about there a couple of names. So Charlotte, I think, and you've talked about your VA in the Philippines as well. So who is actually who now in the city? So Alyssa, can you walk me through, you know, who does what?
Yeah, so Charlotte is full-time and she's our sort of main broker assistant. She takes phone, like she gets the initial inquiry, she makes contact, she gets a rundown of what they're looking to do. She's amazing with her client conversations. She's very, very personable. Everyone that speaks to her loves her, and that was so important for Elle and I when we were hiring someone, to have someone that we could trust to be the first point of contact, because they're the ones that are, you know, she's making that initial connection, and we trust her to do that, and we don't lose anyone for having this part of the process. So she gets the whole scenario. She sends us a snapshot. She books a time into our calendar. And then when we're in the office, because, you know, getting these inquiries ad hoc on a Tuesday, if it's for me, for example, I'm not there. So at least they know, and I know that we're sitting down for 30 minutes. It's usually on a Zoom or a Teams meeting, and we know what we're discussing. We're not fumbling through details. We get on the call. I say, yeah, thanks, Charlotte's given me all this information, and we can do the top line sort of numbers over the phone on that initial chat. So that has been a really key part of our process, because initially it was like, oh, hi, thanks for your inquiry. You know, I'll miss a call, they'll miss a call, I'll miss a call, they'll miss a call. It's just removed so much back and forth. So she's very, very good at that. And Charlotte also, and Danny also, will take the deal. Once we pick a lender, it's like, it's over to you. So they work with Mary all through the Apply Online, gather all the supporting documents. We're copied in on everything. We know where everything's at. And we check in daily on the whole WIP. We know exactly where everything's up to, but that part of the process is up to them. So Danny has a very similar role in terms of loan processing, but she doesn't so much have those chats with the clients like Charlotte does, but she does on case-by-case deals. So Danny now works 3 days a week because she's got a little 1-year-old as well. So she does Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we allocate the deals which are not critical with time. So it might be like a pre-approval or a refinance or anything that's not sort of urgent that needs to be lodged straight away. So Charlotte would take those. Mariel does a lot for us. She is a powerhouse. We've had her for about 18 months and that girl is just, honestly, everything we allocate to her is done within half an hour. It's unbelievable the amount of stuff she gets through. So she does all the living expense analysis, which is all cross-checked by the team. She does all the retention pricing. She's pricing our book every single day. She does all the apply onlines, essentially, and then once she does her bit, she pushes it back to the girls to make contact with the client to gather supporting documents. So she's such a critical part of the process. She's not usually client-facing aside from retention emails. She does all our gifting, like we send settlement gifts, we send referral gifts. She organises all that with our gifting lady. She's, she does basically every administrative task that we can possibly give to her, we give to her.
So how did you find these powerhouse women? Because did you, look in the industry? Did you go outside of industry? Did you ask your mates? Like, how do you actually hire these people?
I think we got a little lucky. Mariel, we went through an agency called Karuna Assist, and they source VAs for people within the industry. She's the first person we interviewed, and we had no reason not to hire her. She'd had an accounting background, so even though it wasn't broking, she had experience with numbers and administration. So, we just took a bit of a leap of faith with her with not having experience, but it's worked out beautifully. Danny is actually my sister-in-law. It's my husband's sister. And she came back from overseas and she was at a bit of a loss as to what to do. I said, why don't you just come and do some casual work with us and you can learn the ropes. And then she was 12 hours. She was 20 hours. We're like, do you want to just go full-time? So this was through,
How do you feel about full-time work?
So she was full-time within 6 months, I think, and she's never left us. So we've trained her from green, like completely green, and she's just knocks out 3 or 4 AOLs in a day. She's incredible. And Charlotte we found on Seek. Yeah.
So across the board there, you've done like different things, family, professional
I wouldn't
recruitment.
say that we have a specific recruitment strategy, and Elle and I have never hired people before, obviously. Like we probably, if we did it again, we'd probably get some guidance on that from probably Nancy. But it took time to get them all up to speed, but now they're up to speed. We can be out here doing things like this and the business is just running.
Alyssa and I both went on holidays together, of course, last week for, 7 days, and we've never done that before. In the past 5 years, outside of sort of the Christmas break and the January break, we've never been able to take time off together. And to be able to do that last week was a real milestone for us.
I didn't turn my laptop on the whole week, which is crazy because my holiday in October was very, very different last year. I was just so stressed, working till midnight. It was before the team were really able to. Danny wasn't back. Charlotte was still learning. And it was just very, very different. And the instrumental difference between October and now is Nancy.
Yeah. Well, amazing. And it sounds like, obviously you're the 2 principal brokers. So having both of you off at the same time, most people would shudder at the thought of that. But it sounds like, you've obviously got your processes down pat, that you can take a week off and that things still get done.
Now we can.
Yeah, exactly.
It's taken 5 years.
Yeah. But good for you. You got there, and it's all a learning curve, isn't it? Because obviously not only do you change, but your business changes. You go through different stages. You need different help at different parts in your sort of development as well. When you're first starting, you probably don't need all the support yet. But when you actually do, it's sort of having to learn how to do it. So, good for you for getting there. That's the main thing. You've done it. When you looked about then sort of writing loans, I haven't asked you about the types of loans you're writing, but I presume predominantly resi?
It is, yeah.
How do you go about generating leads? So when you first started, you said, you didn't have any sort of book. Well, you didn't have a book that you bought. You didn't have any kind of clients that you were sort of reaping in. So how did you go about actually getting your first leads through the door, and how do you do it now? And Elle, I'll start with you asking that question as a marketing person.
Yeah, I think originally when we started, we had all these big audacious goals, and we're like, yeah, we'll just start settling like, you know, 5 mil a month. We'll be right. And then the actual reality of bringing in, you know, 8-10 mil worth of leads and then settling 5 of them was a lot harder than what we originally anticipated. Look, we both grew up in the Hills network, in the Hills district, and we've both got big networks of friends and family. So, you know, you start by doing loans for friends, family. You get them to write Google reviews for you. You know, we went hard on our social media, which at the time, 5 years ago, not a lot of brokers did. So, you know, we did a lot on our Instagram, a lot on our Facebook. We made sure our website was up to scratch, that sort of thing, all of which we sort of did on our own back then because we had the time to do it. You know, now, you know, we get someone in to do our website. You know, we've got people that help us with social media, all those sorts of things. But yeah, in terms of getting leads through the door, it was a big social media presence. So we did a little bit of sort of door knocking and introducing ourselves to the local real estate agents and that sort of thing. But a lot of them were already aligned with, you know, brokers or things like that. So it's a real tough sell. But yeah, and then eventually what happened is we got recommended on Facebook on parenting groups. So on Hills District Mums, there's, I don't know, about 30,000 people in the group. And then all of a sudden we'd get this cult following, and people would just recommend us time and time again on Hills District Mums. And that's eventually where all of our leads came from.
Wow.
Or not all of them, but look, a good 80% of them would come from Hills District Mums. And yeah, we were able to generate a client base without doing any sort of advertising. It was purely word of mouth. At the beginning, we did do a little bit of networking at the beginning. So we attended a few networking groups and things like that. So just, you know, help us connect with other people in the area and, you know, build our own sort of portfolio of people that we can call upon and use in business as well, which was very useful.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hills District Mums has been probably our biggest source of leads.
Yeah.
It's just organic now.
Yeah.
And the more people we've helped, and we do a good job, and people love us because we do a good job. We put our heart and soul into it. You wouldn't know we've got 6 kids under 6 behind the scenes. So yeah, people love working with us, and if someone asks for a broker, especially in that group, we've probably got, I don't know how many people we've worked with in the Hills District, like maybe 600 people or more now. We'll see that and say, you have to work with these girls. So it's not just one person saying it, it's like 30 or 40 or 50.
Yeah.
So it's just organic. And once you've helped 1,200 people, which is I think what our database is now, you know, it just naturally grows from there. And that is the part that takes time.
Yep.
And that you can't cultivate that when you haven't helped anyone in the early days. So yeah, every year it really is all through our network that we get the business now from people we've helped recommending other people.
You mentioned earlier about referral gifts as well. So I wonder how you went about setting up your referral partners and who your referral partners are now.
So we have a lady called Laura, and she'll get really busy once I say her company name, but her name's Gift Hunters Australia. And we met her through our gym actually, and she was a startup at a similar time. And the broker that I worked with when I first joined the industry, they used to send out a thank you for every referral they received, and then they would send out a settlement gift, and then they would send a settlement thank you to the person who referred.
Wow.
And their business was phenomenal, and they'd grown in a very similar way. So I knew that was an important part of the process that Elle and I didn't want to be doing ourselves. So we basically have worked with Laura for 5 years. At the end of every month, we send out thank you gifts to everyone that's referred, and we send out settlement gifts to everyone that's settled. Whether that's a key point, like part of why we've done well, I don't know. I mean, it looks nice. She packages them up beautifully. They wouldn't know that they haven't come from us. They're all branded with our ribbons and stickers. And
She does a beautiful job.
yeah, so we don't actually do anything in that process other than get Laura to do it because that's her bread and butter. It's just very, very good. But yeah, I think it is important to thank people for referring to you.
Yeah, that's lovely. And it sounds, though, like quite expensive. You've got to set aside some money for that. Does that come from Trail? Like, how do you actually account for it?
We do spend, gosh, what do we spend a year in this? Probably 20,
I don't know. We don't spend a lot of money on marketing otherwise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just sort of think if this is our primary marketing strategy, then let's do this because it leaves a really good taste in, the referrer's mouth, leaves a good taste in the, the customer's mouth, and they're more likely to refer you.
Yeah.
And quite often than not, we pick up the conversation with them after settlement, we get texting, and, it just helps create really genuine relationships with people. And
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
And it's the sort of thing they'll tell their mates as well.
That's
Their mates
right.
might see it in their house and
Well,
be
they
like,
post,
where'd you get that
they
from?
post stories and posts and
And then we
tag us
repost
and-
them.
Yeah.
So it's good social media content for us. So, yeah.
Oh, like it. Okay, well, I've been talking a lot about the actual sort of process, but I think, you managed to take a holiday this year. And I think this is a really key part of running your own business is trying to actually find the time to do have a break, to make sure that the company is running, to actually de-stress, to have some time for your space, for your family, for your own mental health. But when it comes to actually unwinding and de-stressing, so what do you actually do? What's the sort of thing that you turn to help you manage all of the emotional, baggage of being a broker? And Alyssa, I'll start with you for that.
I think, once we started with Nancy, she gave us a few tips around this, and there's things that you wouldn't typically think of. So she said, get a cleaner for your house. and I was like, I don't know, I'll have to clean for the cleaner, and is it really going to make that much of a difference? And she's like, get a cleaner for the office and for the house. So anyway, I did what I was told, and I found this lady who is like my favourite person in the world now, and she comes once a week and she cleans our house. Like, I have 3 little kids and they just turn it upside down. She makes it look like a hotel. I don't know how she does it, but she does it every week. That in itself, knowing on a Monday I can come home and my house will look like that, helps with my stress levels.
Yeah.
We go to the gym. It is hard.
It's the
because
little things every week, I think. It's just carving out a little bit of time for yourself. I mean, we both like to go to the gym, but, if it doesn't happen at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30, it's not going to happen at all. So you've got to be quite strict with doing it. And if you fall out of routine, it gets a little bit hard. But, just making sure that we've got time to do a personal appointment every now and again, or, if the kids have something on at school, being able to carve out a bit of time for that as well. It's hard. But look, the cleaner has changed both of our lives. Like, knowing once a week that your house looks like a hotel is
It's the same cleaner?
No.
No, we have
no,
2
it's
very
different?
good ladies who are both local to our area,
Yeah.
but we've just been lucky. I've had
good for the
cleaners in the
soul.
past that are not like her, but getting a good person, like, she doesn't just clean and dust the bench top. She packs up the toys. She does washing. Like, she's amazing. And if you can find someone like that as a working mum, I would give up anything.
And
before
don't
I
feel
would
guilty
give her
about it,
up.
because that's what we felt for so long. We're like, we could do it ourselves. That's silly. We're here anyway. But the amount of conversation it stops between you and your husband about, like, who's going to clean the bathroom, who's
Yeah.
going to do this, and you come home and you know what? It's all done and you don't need to have a conversation.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
it's a couple $100, but think about the value
It's
that it
so
actually
worth it.
provides.
It's
yeah.
invaluable. And things like, don't, like, with meals and planning and things like that, make sure you're doing, like, Woolies online order. Like, you just got to be super, super organised. Order some pre-prepared meals, like order dinner, ladies. Like, do what you need to do to get by and don't feel guilty about it.
I think that's the thing, is you can't feel guilty. And, if the kids are having chicken nuggets for dinner once or twice a week, I
Whatever.
don't get myself in a flap about it. Like, you've just got to do what you have to do, and everyone's happy and everyone's fed. Try not to overthink little things like that where you think, I should be cooking this and that, because cooking is one thing I don't do a lot of. Like, we eat very plainly at home. It's like my husband and I will have fish and vegetables every night of the week, and the kids will have some sort of variation of 5 different meal options. But it's just the stage of our lives where we can't unless we get a little chef in to do it. It's not going to happen. So just try not to get hung up on little things like that. A big part of it too, which I personally found made a huge difference, which Nancy told us to do, was just turn off all your phone notifications. So the emails just come through all day. And in doing that, I've been able to not be so fixated on what's coming in, because if I'm not in the office, I can't always do anything with it. And then it's stuck in my brain thinking, I've got to do that. So I try not to pay too much attention to my emails unless I'm waiting on something critical until I get into the office.
Yeah.
That was a big factor. Just clearing out all your junk emails and unsubscribing from all the spam so you don't get into the office and have to delete 30 junk emails that you don't ever read.
Yeah.
Again, it's just being smart with your time.
Yeah.
It's just making sure that you're just very efficient. And when, you dedicate time to doing emails, you do emails.
Yeah.
And just make sure that your phone doesn't own you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just talking about my own personal sort of life, as well. Like I now use my phone and have different settings for different things. So on the weekend, my mail actually moves to a different screen, so it's not on my first screen. Otherwise I see it and I'm like, I've got 5,000 emails I need to read.
It's hard to switch it off once you've seen it. So if you just don't see it and you consciously don't open the inbox until you're in, it makes a difference. And another thing we've done is direct all of our loan updates to a central mailbox, so they no longer come to Elle and myself. They will go to a loans@twobirdsOneLoan.com.au, and that inbox is monitored by the team.
Yeah.
So, we don't have to sit on there and go, I've got this approval, I've got this outstanding info request. You don't have to flick it on. We've just removed that part of the process. So it goes straight to Charlotte and she deals with it. So it's just all these little things that we never would have thought of to do.
The new loans inbox has been great, actually, because it just filters all that information and all the stuff that's in our inbox that we feel like we need to action to the girls.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and a great tip there. So looking at, having built the business over the years, if there are any kind of key highlights and lowlights that stand out for you, maybe the things that you're most proud of or the things that worked best for your company, and then conversely on the flip side, the things that you wish you'd done earlier or maybe the biggest challenges you faced. And Elle, I'm going to start with you for your top highlight and lowlight.
I think our highlight, we are so proud of the business that we've built, and we've both been able to grow our families at the same time. And, it hasn't been easy, but we've managed to do it. And we've managed to kick a lot of goals as well. Like we're really big on goal setting. So we'll set, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year goals. And I think we found one of our goal sheets from, 2019, and you look back on them and you're like, we did all those things. Like, I think manifesting and setting goals is such an important part of being in business. Like I think if you're just floating through time, just wondering what will happen next, you need to have a focus and you need to have strategies in place to get you there. So make sure you're clear on what you want and how you're going to get there. And I think, the highlight for us is, building the business and being able to grow our families. And, we've moved into an office. We've got all these new staff. So that's been amazing. The low light also is, time is it's just so hard. I don't know if there's so much of a low light.
I think the journey itself, yes, it's been up and down just because it was challenging. We took a huge hit of income for a long time, but we've, 5 years in, we're earning what we were earning, if not more than what we were earning in our corporate roles. But it takes time. But along the way, I remember one time I just said to Elle, I don't know if I could keep going on this income. Like it's just, we work so hard and it just takes time. Like I think that's definitely probably the hardest thing for new brokers is you just have to have realistic expectations on the earning capacity, and you really have to be prepared to take a hit for a period of time. But if you can get through it, the potential in this industry is unlimited. It's infinite. We could just keep growing and growing. We don't know what we want to do. We've sort of talked about stopping at this team level, and then we thought, we could keep going. I love that the options are endless. I love that we can just write the story as we go.
Yeah. And when it comes to top tips for new brokers, is there anything that you'd advise a new broker, things that might have been great for you or things that you kind of wish you'd done in the first year perhaps? And Elle, again, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this in the car on the way here, and we just sort of said that, I think for so many years we were just grinding away at the business. Like we were, doing all the apps, doing all the, the client interaction and that sort of thing. And I think it probably would have been better for us to bring someone on a little bit earlier than we did so that we can focus on building the business and they can, run the business in the background for us. So, I think if we could go back in time, we would probably bring someone on a little bit earlier.
There's even options if it's not affordable to bring someone on. There's so many companies that you can just pay per loan.
Yep.
That I think everyone from day dot should be doing, because why spend your time punching out an apply online, spending 3 or 4 hours there when you could be going out and talking to a new referral partner. So I think that's the trap that a lot of people fall into as a new business, is not to spend anything. However, I think if you're prepared to just spend a little to grow, I think we would have probably grown quicker if we had have let go of a few things in the early days.
Great. Well, Eloise and Alyssa, thank you so much for coming on the Elite Broker Podcast and sharing your insights and your journey with us here on the Elite Broker Podcast. Love to find out more about how Two Birds One Loan have been building a brokerage, and it's been a fascinating journey. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
If you've got any questions for me, Elle, or Alyssa, do feel free to reach out. You can reach me at editor@theadvisor.com.au, and of course check out the Two Birds One Loan website, where I'm sure Charlotte will be happy to answer all of your response questions. And of course, do take a listen back to previous episodes of Elite Broker to find out how other leading brokers are running their broking businesses. We hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll catch you next time for another episode on the Advisor Podcast Network.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs, and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.